Now, had that been available, you think you've seen a boom in the last few years, it would have been twice as big or more. And I know that from practical experience. So I don't think there's such a thing as having too many or too much designated residential land in this county of Norfolk, because I know that the movement is coming from the GTA westward. And we've seen a good example of that last spring when the GTA was a crazy market. They got big bucks. They moved westward to Oakville, places like that. They got big bucks. They moved to Brantford and Norfolk County. And that's only going to continue if we have the land available and service capacity to facilitate what the growth could actually be here. Anyways, that's it for that. I would like to speak about the Lawrence property. I did put a package of materials at everyone's desk. I was hoping that Lee Robinson from engineering would be here, but she's not. I believe there may be someone else. In that package, the first couple letters are just letters that were pointing out the Lawrence's objective and the reasonings for their objective and how this came about. Excuse me. I've been dealing recently with some pretty major developer investors, and I have a deal going on the Dover neighborhood west, and I guess I did a good job on selling them on Norfolk and Port Dover because they love the area, and they said find us more in Dover. So I started contacting the people up at the other end of town, being the Dover Mills North neighborhood planning area. And in speaking with Bob Lawrence, he was pointing out that, excuse me, that Mr. Regink has a concept plan on the property beside him. And Mr. Lawrence was saying that he has 3 acres that's within the urban boundary on the south end of his property. However, the balance of his property, which has frontage all along Tisdale Road, was left out of the urban boundary. And I was looking at it and I couldn't make any sense of it. Like when the original official plan was done, I don't like it. It would have been a continuing, or I'm trying to think of the word, common sense thing to continue that urban boundary straight across from the north end of the urban boundary on the adjacent property. But instead it was skirted around the Lawrence property and thereby cutting off all that road frontage on Tisdale Drive. And now we've learned through Lee Robinson that, you know, that whole neighborhood plan, it has some, could have some traffic issues. You'll have a lot of objections when the developer goes to try to develop that property, because the only ingress and egress to all the development within it is coming out on Dover Mills Road. So the people on Dover Mills are going to say, oh, all that extra new traffic is going to be coming down to us on Dover Mills Road. So Lee Robinson was saying, you know, an east-west corridor from Tisdale Road over to the Cockshutt Road would handle all the traffic in the new neighborhood planning area. And now, because this urban boundary was skirted around the Lawrence property, you're faced with trying to put a road, transportation corridor through a neighborhood planning area on rural agricultural land, private land. So it would have made sense to carry that urban boundary as it comes down from the north end. If you're looking at the map, this is the map I'm talking about. Right along the bush, right straight out to Tisdale Road. And that will accommodate a new corridor east to west. And that will handle, that will handle all the traffic in the neighborhood west, or the Dover Mills planning area once it gets developed. So that's a reason that I think it would be a good argument to make an amendment now. I think I'm thinking maybe this was an oversight of the original plan, when the mapping was done for the original official plan. And it seems to me it would have been good planning to carry that across to Tisdale Road from the north end of the existing urban boundary. So I think that's why we have an official plan review every 5 years, so we can look at deficiencies, or call them oversights or mistakes. We've seen this mistake now, and it's supported by your engineering department, from what I understand. Are you from engineering?
Mr. Vandenbush,
Yeah.
I'm the guy you talked to
Okay,
here,
all right, sorry, all right.
Yeah, and if you wish a question to staff,
Oh, okay.
I can
Through
entertain
you,
that for
okay,
you.
all right.
Yeah, you got
Yep,
her.
okay.
Thank you.
No problem. So anyways, that's what I'm saying is, here, by chance, just before this meeting tonight, this comes up. So Lawrence has asked me to just speak on their behalf and present this idea that maybe this is an opportunity to correct a previous mistake or oversight in the previous mapping of the original official plan. And that's what the 5-year review is for. And it's going to be very beneficial to your trying to build or develop Dover Mills North. And what else did I have here? Oh, there's one other issue there. The way the current mapping, urban boundary is, it basically landlocks 3 acres of the Lawrence property that is in the urban boundary. So that's one other thing. I'm thinking that if you want to see that development, Dover Mills North, it's already in your official plan as a neighborhood planning area. Now we've learned about some issues, and now it's time for the review. It's not too late to have council direct planning staff, just as you were talking about with Mr. Oliver's thing with Concordant, direct them to adjust the boundary. And the reason being, it's not asking for taking more agricultural land out, because attached in the materials I've given you, I've highlighted some wording that is provincial policy that deals with planning transportation and infrastructure corridors. So that's the excuse to go to MMA with and say, listen, we've got this neighborhood plan here. It's going to cause traffic problems. We should have done this in the first place. We probably should have had that piece of land that we're talking about in the urban boundary in the first plan. So we'd like to correct it now. And I was just wondering if council would consider doing that, or taking it to the province in that manner, but directing staff to negotiate on that vein, not to go and ask the province, can we do this? Say, this is what we need to do to correct a mistake we made originally. So I think that's about all I have to say. If there's any questions.
Ron, just before we open to questions, I'm certainly in full agreement that the expansion of the urban boundary on Lawrence's property is something that is appropriate here to Tisdale Road, how far north. I don't think this is a place to get into talking about road and layout and access. That's another meeting type of thing, a site plan.
Is that not good planning, though, to allow for it?
We're doing an official plan review, so we're talking about urban boundaries, we're talking about zoning, but we're not talking specifically about how to develop a certain piece of property. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't get into that tonight, okay?
No.
That was a minor reason. Okay, I saw Councillor Broughton. Questions to Mr. Vandenbush.
Thank you, Mayor Luke and Ron. Thanks for coming. I have looked at this Lawrence plan, and I got to tell you, I sometimes wonder how the original urban boundaries were ever drawn. Nobody, it seems to me, to have any rationale as to how, like, were they considered drainage areas, or looks like they just followed the bush lot around on this particular one. But anyways, my question to you is, I'm looking at this map here, second
Yes.
page, I guess, of your proposal.
This one here?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. On the bottom there, it shows Lawrence, 3 acres.
Yes.
There's 5 lots on Prospect. Are they existing?
They're existing and built on, so there's
They
no
are.
access from Mill Road there.
Okay, and my recollection of when this came forward, and I've heard the word landlocked for that 3 acres.
It's not technically landlocked because he can drive to it from his
I
property.
realize that.
Yeah, okay.
But as far as,
Development.
has he discussed that with Mr. Eggick, is it? The guy to the east?
Apparently, there was some discussion, but I see the concept plan, the only access he has in that concept plan is coming out on a curve on Mill Road, which is not a good thing.
Well, I look at, if you see the word subject lands,
Yeah, that's the Egging concept
okay,
plan.
there's that road that comes through in there, and it could go into that 3 acres if there was a couple of lots eliminated on that road, whatever it may be called. But I think the mayor touched on the fact that we are dealing somewhat with urban boundaries, but I'm trying to look at Mr. Lawrence's 3 acres right now and whether or not that can develop. And if I remember right, when Mr. Valley was here, he indicated that I thought he indicated that water and sewer were, capacity was there for that 3 acres. Am I correct on that?
It probably would be. I'm sure that there is enough capacity for that, but
I don't recall the exact conversation, but I thought that question was asked and he answered it. But anyways, I guess all I'm asking is, has he or you or somebody discussed the development of the 3 acres?
have you discussed it with Mr. Egging?
He's not, okay. Okay, well, I wanted to get some clarification on that, but I think there is, in my opinion anyway, just looking at it, there is the potential to develop that 3 acres if it's negotiated properly, so.
I agree, and that's not the point or why
No.
I'm here.
No, I realize that, but,
And I guess I'm just looking at what good planning would have been in the original mapping, was to have that red line come straight across the middle of that Lawrence property,
Yeah.
to have that frontage on Tisdale. So
Well-
the big picture is, you have a whole neighborhood planning area,
right,
and you're gonna have problems getting development approved there, providing all these current landowners even agree to go along with the development of it, unless you can have an east-west corridor. So the big picture, I know it's not the right time for that, but designating the land is so you don't have to put it in a county road on rural property, which is gonna be the responsibility of the county.
right.
Whereas if you have that land designated now, it's gonna be the responsibility of the developer. And you're gonna get your money back. So-
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of other issues when you look at changing that one in terms of sewer capacity and everything, so.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just wanted to get some clarification on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ron, my question is pretty simple, and I'm looking at the two maps that, the first map that Councillor Brent was just referring to shows the Lawrence property of 34 acres roughly,
Right.
and your or his suggestion might be that we discuss with staff and possibly direct staff to redesignate approximately half of that, south of the tree line. Is that-
Yes, where the green line is, and
Yeah.
it doesn't even matter if that little jog is
I
in there.
understand.
Yeah, it was only put in there for a
The
pond.
rationale being to avoid interfering with the woodlot on the north half, or just the fact that he would only be interested in seeing roughly half of that property?
No, you could designate the entire property if you
Yeah.
wanted to, but it just makes sense, long-range planning-wise, to have the land designated, so when you do need that corridor, it's on urban land, not rural agricultural land.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Ron, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, would you like to come next, please?
Leave that on.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, when I looked at this, the first thing I thought to myself was, what is the Norfolk County official plan actually supposed to do? So it provides the essential tool to direct future growth, development, and change in the county and to create the community envisioned by Norfolk residents. That statement was taken directly from the introduction to the official plan. To create the community envisioned by Norfolk residents. Great statement. This makes me want to believe that you really want to make Norfolk County, all of Norfolk County, the best place to live. In order to do this, though, you need to rely on the tools available to you to make decisions on future development. Tools such as the provincial policy statement, dynamic beach study, lakeshore study, etc. You've made a great start in implementing your recently written lakeshore access egress policy statement. It was passed by this council, referred to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, who for some reason rejected it, sent it back to the drawing board without any suggestions as how to enhance it, just an outright rejection. But it's my understanding this county does not need their approval, therefore you've adopted the policy. You believed and trusted that what you spent time and effort on was right. It's a wonderful start to updating the tools that you have at your disposal to make decisions to create the community envisioned by Norfolk residents. The PPS, I would imagine, is out of your hands, being a provincial policy, but it does have options to challenge it if one can show that changes can be made without endangering or upsetting habitat, species, safety, etc. So let's talk about the official plan. This Norfolk County official plan that is up for review now. As stated in the introduction, this is the principal planning tool used to manage growth and development within the county to the year 2036. The purpose of the plan is to provide a policy framework to guide economic, environmental, and social decisions that have implications for use of land. The county official plan is also expected to provide a guide to senior levels of government and other public agencies in the preparation of plans having an impact on Norfolk County. Private interests shall also be guided by the land use and development policies of this plan. It goes on to state that the purpose of the official plan is to reduce uncertainty in the public and private sectors regarding future development by establishing clear developmental principles and policies and land use designations. A lot of things can change over the next 18 years. A lot has changed over the past 18 years. The official plan as it stands deals with all zone designations in this county. I haven't read all 254 pages of this official plan, but I've read the sections on hazard land designations, which is the most important part to me at the moment. As you know, last week there was an OMB hearing in this room dealing with a proposed bylaw that would essentially sterilize Hastings Drive, disallowing any other use other than day use. The official plan was cited as one of the policies that backs that proposed bylaw. This official plan that deals with zoning only on Hastings Drive. It's not current in relation to considerations of private ownership, road location and encroachments, land use permissions, and stakeholder concerns. The recent OMB hearing, which took all 5 days last week, cost all parties a total of approximately $500,000. I know my group alone spent $100,000 on a lawyer and a planner. $500,000 for the OMB chair to make a decision based on 30-year-old tools, based on incomplete tools. Just think of the studies that could have been funded with that amount of money. This is just one area that I know of. What other planning decisions have been made in this county based on incomplete tools? Let me make a comparison here. If you go to your doctor for a health issue, you would expect your doctor to be up to date in medical knowledge on that issue. Your doctor does not practice 30-year-old medicine. He or she regularly updates their knowledge through continuing medical education, recertifications, and seminars. They do not treat you with 30-year-old knowledge. This is all done at their own expense, both in time in dollars. You send your children to school. We have very good schools in our county with excellent teachers. Those teachers do not teach your children with 30-year-old systems. Those teachers take summer courses, night courses, seminars to update and expand their knowledge and teaching credentials. This is also done at their own expense, both in time and dollars. It is time this county did the same thing. Do not just roll this official plan over with a few added and deleted definitions. Base our official plan on the tools at your disposal. Before you can update the official plan, you need to update the policies and studies that are out there for you to rely on. The dynamic beach study, for instance, needs to be updated. The dynamics of the North Shore of Lake Erie have changed dramatically since 1985. Perhaps a four-season environmental study should be undertaken. Do the studies to get updated information to add to your tools. Insist on educating staff on up-to-date erosion control methods to create the community envisioned by Norfolk's residents. I implore this council to do the right thing financially and morally. Do more comprehensive studies on the pertinent areas in this county before you review and adopt a new version of the Norfolk County official plan. Gather all the tools available to you, then make an educational and informative decision regarding the future growth, development, and change in the county, and to create the community envisioned by Norfolk residents. Yes, it will cost money, but the residents of Norfolk County deserve a decision based on creating the community they envision, based on the most up-to-date knowledge out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for Mary? Thank you again. Yes, sir. Mr. Schuyler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to Mr. Mayor and Council, Brett Schuyler, current Chair of the Agriculture Advisory Committee, and bringing a resolution forward from that committee. And the motion I'm talking about is from our December 14th meeting, and I'll read it out. Whereas the Agriculture Advisory Committee is supportive of the concept of residential-related lot relocation or lot swaps for the purpose of improving agricultural lands and improve the viability of the surrounding agricultural landscape. And whereas Norfolk County Council directed staff to present lot swap policy options through the Norfolk County Official Plan Review for Council's consideration. And whereas the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs have recommended the removal of the lot swap policy on the basis that the provincial policy statement does not permit the creation of new lots outside of settlement areas. And whereas the lot swap policy reviewed by the MMA and OMAFRA would not result in a net gain of lots outside of the settlement areas, but would result in existing lots being moved to an improved location, that it's recommended that Norfolk County Council keep the proposed lot swap policy in the Norfolk County official plan. So that's the motion, and to sum that up a little differently, the Ag Committee, Council, staff have all worked hard bringing this policy forward for the official plan. I know this isn't a new topic for anyone around the council. It's pretty clear and what it is. Lot swap policy, referring to moving an existing lot from a bad spot to a good spot, is what we're talking about. Council's clearly supported this by bringing it forward in the official plan review, and that staff at MMA and OMAFRA have suggested or recommended, but it is not dictated. So just that council is within its power to leave this policy in the official plan, and then the province can challenge it at that point. The Ag Advisory Committee, again, is asking council to leave that proposed lot swap policy in the official plan, and send a message to MMA and OMAFRA that we want this policy for Norfolk County by doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? That's all right.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. Through you to the deputation, Now, you mentioned that moving these lots, and to me, I agree with it totally, because you're just moving a box inside a box, because nothing's been built yet. But you think it would be beneficial to the farming community to be able to reposition that lot away from certain farming activities?
Yes, absolutely, and a very good example would be yeah, I have my lot here beside a chicken barn. It's not good for the farm community, it's not good for the person that wants to build. You know, move it over to this corner where it doesn't have these conflicts. It's pretty no-brainer stuff, and the policy that staff brought forward did a really good job of summarizing that and making sure that if a lot relocation was to happen, that there's some guidelines there. So it's not, so that it is improving the viability of the agricultural area as the main focus.
Okay, so it's rather like that one that we dealt with where it was a Scotland Trucking, where at the corner, that retired couple couldn't build their retirement home. Well, they could have, but beside the commercial area. You know, the dangerous part about that, Brett, is that's common sense, and it's a tough sell at certain levels of government. Not Norfolk County.
Well, yeah, but in all fairness, I think the county tried to get that lot swapped. So I think, Mr. Columbus.
Mr. Mayor, I know Mr. Schuyler can't move that motion here that he read out, but as a member of the Ag Advisory Board, can I put that motion on the floor at this time?
No, not till we're done the public meeting, and then we'll,
Okay.
if you could just make note of that, please.
Just to make note that the Ag Advisory Board is made up of leading edge farmers in our Norfolk community. And I think they know what they're talking about. And, you know, what's wrong with changing a marginal piece of land and putting a house on it versus that good piece of land that was taken off several years ago? It makes real common sense, as Councillor Height notes.
Thank you. Any other questions for the presenter? Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Thank you. See this gentleman up here, then I'll come to you next, please. Thank you. I don't know this guy.
Thank you very much. I'll be really quick.
Could I have your name, please?
Oh, my name is John Armstrong, and
John, thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you. And I'm here to talk about the importance of the built form in the official plan. There's really there's very little reference currently to the quality or the caliber of the built form that council and the county might want to see as over the next number of years. And the province has given municipalities a significant amount of control since basically 2006 to have more of a say in the quality and the caliber of that built form, particularly as it relates to materiality, sort of what your buildings are built from, that type of thing. You can't have any kind of an impact or any kind of a say on what's happening inside of a building, but you have a lot of impact and you have a lot of potential say on what happens on the outside of that building. So a lot of that kind of thing is actually covered off in urban design guidelines. Smaller municipalities do often refer to some of those some design guideline language inside their official plans. A number of other municipalities refer to urban design guidelines in their official plan, and then they write a set of urban design guidelines after that in order to provide them with some flexibility to make some changes and to make some adjustments. So what I'd certainly encourage the municipality to do is to take the opportunity to ensure there's some enabling language inside your official plan as it relates to referencing just the notion of urban design guidelines, to follow urban design guidelines, and then follow up with those, so that way the municipality and you can have that kind of say to prevent a developer, quite frankly, from coming in and wanting to build something that is really subpar. And you want to make sure that you have the tools at your disposal to be able to say. No, we don't want you to do that. You have to follow our urban design guidelines, and this is what they are. If you don't have that language in there and you don't have that guidelines, you have very little recourse in order to try to have that kind of an influence.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm just thinking, how many more can I ask when as this lady's coming down, wish to speak? I saw 2 hands there, 3. So I think we'll listen to this lady, then we'll have a short break, because certainly after our speakers, there will be some, I would assume, a fair amount of discussion. So could you give us your name, please?
Yes, my name is Kristen Boulard, and I am with IBI Group. I'm representing Mike MacArthur.
I'm sorry,
I'm representing Mike MacArthur with
Thank you.
Westwood Trails.
okay.
I have a really, really small presentation, just 2 slides instead of doing a handout. 200. Yeah, that one. Thank you. You can skip to the very next slide, actually. So highlighted in the red circle is the Westwood Trail subdivision in the hamlet of Simcoe. The yellow part there, this is the urban boundary that's proposed. You can see that it kind of dips in and around where like in towards the right. That area, if you go to the next slide, please. If you look, that area there is the existing and proposed park and a stormwater management pond. We previously requested that they be included in the urban boundary expansion as they are urban services, the park land itself. Once the park is dedicated through the registration of the final site plan, that'll be quite a large park, and without it being in the urban area, you won't be able to provide any urban type servicing like washrooms or spray pad or anything like that to the park. So we're once again asking that the park and the storm pond be included in the urban boundary. And then, just for the heck of it, throw in the additional lands owned by Mike MacArthur, as it's not really going to be farmable in the piece that's left. It brings a cleaner cut to your urban boundary line. But what we're really looking for is the parkland to be included in, just for those future services if somebody wants to have a washroom put in there, or if there's sports fields that are added. Okay, thank you. If you have any questions.
Yeah, don't run away.
Yeah, I'm not running.
Thanks, Kristen. Councilor Broughton?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Luke, through you to the applicant here. I'm just trying to sort this out here when I look at it. Are you seeing the lots, how do I describe it? You know, the piece right to the bottom, I guess that would be the south end. That currently is not in the urban boundary, am I correct?
So the existing park, up from there, yep, existing park, and the future parkland below it is not in the urban boundary.
Okay, so that...
So it wraps, it goes, the urban boundary includes the lots on Virginia, then it wraps around and gets the few little lots that are part of Westwood Trails, and then that phase 2 is in the urban boundary.
Okay, but the piece right to the south end, yeah, that piece there, that's not in the urban boundary.
I don't know, actually, that would through.
No, I don't, okay. Thank you, I just wanted to get it sorted out, thank you.
It's the park itself that we're just.
Councilor Black?
Thank you, Mayor Luke, and through you to the speaker. There's an application for this development, and was that application not approved to allow for that stormwater management plan outside the urban boundary?
Yes, it was approved at that time. We perceived it as something that it's permitted. Stormwater management ponds and parks are permitted in the rural area. So instead of the applicant paying for an official plan amendment, we requested that at the 5-year review that it just be included in it in order for nor the county to bring in services if they feel that it's necessary.
So
It's just us saying this got left out, really.
Yeah, but you have that approval. It's not stopping you from your development.
No, it's not. No.
So how will this be an advantage to you
It's,
to have this included when it's already been approved?
it's not an advantage to me or to Mike MacArthur himself, but it would be an advantage to the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to do a short break. Say, I'll be back in my seat in 10 minutes. Thank you. Everyone finds their seats. I'd like to continue, please. Okay, I have a quorum seated. I'd like to continue now, please. I will ask if there are any members of public who wish to speak against or speak in neutral to one of the proposed amendments. Mr. Clofer, I will have you come forward next, please, Mike. Thank you. You're on.
Yeah, it's working?
You're working.
Okay. I'm supposed to focus on you?
No, but you're speaking to council, but if you have questions, you're supposed to go through the chair.
I'm Mike Clofer. I own Titan Trailers. And I guess the land that I own south of number 3 is part of what this is all about. And a little history on that land. The history is, as some councilors know here, if you go back 10 years, you all know what it looked like. I spent money buying this land, knowing it was designated industrial. I cleaned it up, and I spent a lot of money cleaning it up. For you that don't know the whole story. Now, as you all know, we just put up a big factory, 90,000 square feet, which is a sizable place. Titan Trailers has been in this county since 1992. We started out with a small place, and it is what it is today. We operate in Australia, we operate in the UK, we put a brand new building up in the UK. So we're a company that's a little worldwide. What you have to ask yourselves in council, and I'm talking industry as a whole, to make a county work good, in my books, because I also own about 800 acres of land. I originally was a farmer. I know both sides of this coin. I know why we need agricultural land, and today, I know why you need industry. Because without industry, you don't get those big, you don't get to send out those big tax bills. And I pay my share of taxes in this county. So you have to ask yourselves here at council whether you want industry here or do you want just houses and agricultural land. That's what you have to ask yourselves. It is important to have industrial land. It is important to have industrial to employ people in the county. We employed 100 people this year. In 1 year, we employed 100 people. Our place is growing. I am not a short-term visionist. I'm a long-term visionist. I look at things way out, 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I might not make it for 20 more years, I'm not sure yet. But I do have another generation coming on, as in my kids. 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I went down to the state of Indiana, thinking that I would want to maybe have a plant in the U.S. We went down there and looked at properties. 50% of my business is in the U.S. I came back 2 weeks later, shook my head and said, you know what? There is no better place to have industry than Southern Ontario. We're close to the eastern seaboard of the U.S., we're close to Indiana, close to Illinois, et cetera, et cetera. So we decided as a family to make our home in Norfolk County. As you can well see, what we did this year. It takes a lot of land to build trailers. It takes big buildings to build trailers. And if you want to choke Titan trailers, meaning if this land goes, then I've only got so much left. And I bought this land with the intent of growing Titan trailers. And if you want to choke Titan trailers, you can choke it. But I don't know why you would want to do that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Any questions for Mike? Councillor Columbus?
No question, just a comment. That's very well put, Mike. And I just wish that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs staff would be here to listen to your presentation today. Because that's where it falls. Thanks.
Why would we take industrial land and make it that small in this county? Let me see. How much industrial land they got up at Woodstock? How much industrial land they got up at Brant County, where I came from? Think about it. The province wants to give Norfolk County this much?
Well, Mike, if I may comment, I am just baffled that in order to put some land into industrial, the ministry insists that this county take land that's already zoned industrial and put it back into agriculture in order to let us do what we want to do at, say, Scott's. I've never heard of such a I'm sorry, I'm in discussion, that's not my job. But that just,
There is no common sense to this.
That's insane.
Period.
Sorry, I'm supposed to stay out of the discussion, I'm sorry. Did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I better stop.
Please. Thank you very much, Mike. Yes, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, for having me. My name is Mike Crow, and I'm a senior planner with IBI Group. I'm here to talk about something that I know has been a hot topic for many years, and there's probably fatigue around the subject, but I have to do it because this is a public meeting, and I believe this is the time for me still to speak up. This is regarding Hastings Drive. So just to be clear, I was retained as a professional planner by a landowner, Mary Weber, to assist in the hearing that concluded last week. Through my involvement with this process, I felt extremely challenged as a professional planner to come up with options to assist landowners in this area. And the main issue for me was that at this point we were dealing with just zoning, not bigger picture items which affected that zoning. It was very clear that Hastings Drive is a special area. We all know this. Long Point is a special area. And development in this area is not going away anytime soon. I'm talking about existing development. With respect to Hastings specifically, the legacy of previous land division has created a situation where private land ownership is in constant conflict with policies which pertain to natural hazards and natural heritage. And this situation is unsustainable in my opinion. This relationship between private land ownership and these policies that protect the public interest, as it were, for hazards and environmental features, they cannot coexist on Hastings Drive. It was stated repeatedly throughout the OMB hearing that no new development could be permitted, as this would conflict with provincial policy statement and the official plan. And as a planner, I would have to agree generally with that statement. But this is based in part on the identification of the area as hazard lands subject to dynamic beach hazard, as well as habitat of threatened and endangered species, amongst many other policy layers which affect this development. Based on my review, and confirmed through the hearing, there has been no specific technical studies pertaining to these items have been completed, at least not recently, specifically dynamic beach hazard. For instance, it can be delineated differently based on a technical study. So while the Hastings Drive zoning study confirmed that the entire area was within a dynamic beach hazard, there was no supporting information to determine, could that be delineated differently? Could that hazard be applied in a different manner? Would that peel back this one layer of restrictive policy for the area? I fully recognize where we are in the process. It's not possible to complete any of these studies prior to you making a decision on the OP. I'm realistic. I don't expect you to hold up a county-wide official plan for an area-specific study. But I do have a request that could be considered tonight for a policy modification with respect to area-specific policy for Hastings Drive. And this really would direct future study of the area. So based on the draft OP you have before you, I believe it would be an amendment to policy 7331, which is the Hastings Drive site-specific policy area. I'm going to read this wording, and I apologize. I just want to make sure I get it the way I envision something coming together. So that policy wording would read as follows. On land designated hazard lands, site-specific policy area 7331, on Schedule B to this plan, no new development shall be permitted. Notwithstanding this, the county commits to undertaking a comprehensive study of this area, including stakeholder collaboration. This study shall be initiated prior to or at the commencement of the next official plan review exercise and will include but not be limited to topographic survey or assessment, flooding and dynamic beach hazard study and delineation, and environmental impact assessment. The reason I'm saying this, I feel so strongly that this area is special. The people